The Nexus chamber had stood sealed for 10 millennia, its crystalline walls humming with the combined energies of 17 different civilizations. The greatest minds of the Galactic Council had poured their knowledge into creating the ultimate lock, a barrier so complex that it required the simultaneous input of mathematical theorems from the Vorthak, quantum harmonics from the Zelrani, and dimensional phase alignments from the enigmatic builders themselves. Commander Lyra Vex-9 of the Altarian Defense Corps stood before the massive portal, her bioluminescent tentacles flickering with frustration. For 3 standard cycles, she had attempted every conceivable combination, every algorithm her species had developed over their 4,000-year history of technological advancement. The archives clearly state, she transmitted to her companion, High Mathematician Krex of the Silicon Collective, that this chamber contains the seed, the original template from which all sapient life in this galaxy was derived. The power to create new worlds, new species, new possibilities. Krex's crystalline form pulsed with analytical light. Indeed, the Council of Ancients sealed it away when the Devourers threatened to consume all organic matter. They believed it too dangerous to exist, yet too precious to destroy. The lock was meant to open only when 17 different species could work in perfect harmony, a feat they deemed impossible after the Great Wars. Behind them, representatives from 14 of the required species waited in varying states of agitation. The proud Saurians clicked their claws impatiently, while the ethereal whisperfolk maintained their characteristic silence. The hulking Titans had grown bored hours ago and were now engaged in arm-wrestling competitions that shook the station's foundation. Perhaps we should acknowledge defeat, suggested Ambassador Nex of the Void Swimmers, her form rippling through dimensions. Eons have passed since the sealing. Some of the required species may be extinct, their unique contributions lost forever. As if summoned by her words of despair, an entirely unexpected sound echoed through the chamber, the distinctive hiss of a primitive airlock. The assembled aliens turned in unison toward a service hatch that hadn't been used in centuries. A figure emerged wearing what could only be described as environmental protective gear, held together with metallic adhesive strips and an alarming amount of optimism. The being was bipedal, roughly humanoid, with pale pink skin visible through the transparent face covering. "Sorry I'm late," the creature said, its voice carrying through a basic translation device. "Traffic in the outer rim was murder, and I had to stop for fuel 3 times. These old ships aren't exactly built for efficiency." The assembled representatives stared in bewilderment. Commander Vex-9 was the first to find her voice. What are you?" "Human," came the cheerful reply. "Name's Jake Martinez, independent contractor. Got a work order here somewhere." The being, Jake, began patting down various pockets in his environmental suit. Here we go. Emergency lock-picking service, Nexus Station, urgent priority. Figured I'd swing by since I was in the neighborhood." "Lock-picking? High Mathematician." Krex's form blazed with indignation. "Primitive being, this is the most sophisticated security system ever devised. It requires the mathematical harmony of 17 distinct species, quantum calculations that span multiple dimensions, and psychic resonance patterns that—" "Yeah, looks complicated," Jake interrupted, approaching the massive portal. He pulled out what appeared to be a simple metallic device with a twisted end. "Mind if I take a look?" Before anyone could object, the human had inserted his primitive tool into a small depression near the base of the door, a feature so minor that the greatest minds in the galaxy had dismissed it as decorative. Jake wiggled the tool for approximately 3 seconds. The Nexus chamber opened with a sound like singing crystals. Stunned silence filled the station. The portal, which had resisted every attempt by the galaxy's most advanced civilizations for 10,000 years, stood wide open, revealing the soft golden glow of the seed chamber beyond. "How?" whispered Ambassador Nex, her multidimensional form quivering with shock. Jake shrugged, a gesture that somehow conveyed both modesty and complete bafflement at their surprise. "Lock's a lock, isn't it? This one's got a basic 5-pin. Tumbler system hidden behind all the fancy stuff. Pretty standard, really, though I gotta say, whoever installed it had a sense of humor. All those complicated security measures, and they left the maintenance access unlocked." Commander Vex 9's tentacles had stopped glowing entirely, a sign of complete neural overload. You mean, the ancients built a simple mechanical backup system? Makes sense from an engineering perspective, Jake said, beginning to pack up his tool. What happens if all your fancy quantum whatsits fail? You need a way to get inside for maintenance, right? So you install a basic physical override that any decent locksmith could handle. The Titans stopped their arm wrestling. The Saurians stopped their clicking. Even the Whisper folk seemed to lean forward in anticipation. But the complexity, stammered high mathematician Krex, the dimensional alignments, the quantum harmonics. Oh, those work too, Jake said helpfully. Probably a beautiful system when all 17 species work together. But the guy who built this was a practical thinker. He knew someone might need to get in here someday, and he couldn't guarantee all those species would still be around or willing to cooperate. He gestured toward the open portal. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one, though I suppose you folks like to make things complicated. As the assembled representatives slowly filed into the seed chamber too, stunned to speak, Jake collected his payment authorization and headed back toward his ship. Humans, he muttered to himself, shaking his head. We've been opening doors for thousands of years. Galaxy acts like it's rocket science. Behind him, the greatest minds in known space stood in the presence of creation itself, finally understanding that sometimes wisdom lay not in complexity, but in remembering that every sophisticated system needed a simple way in, and that perhaps the newest species in their galaxy might just be the oldest kind of problem solver they'd ever encountered. The door that had stumped a galaxy for 10 millennia had been opened by human ingenuity in mere seconds. Some things, Jake reflected as he fired up his ship's engines, never changed.